Alright, so this is Jake, Jayco Knives. Just wanted to go through, finish up the last 5 or 10 of these war horses, the large ones. Wanted to go over a couple things with setting up, cutting your locks. I cut my locks about 9 degrees. Usually want to go between 8 and 9 degrees. I find 9 degrees works pretty well for me for the way I do it. Considerations when you are designing your setup: make sure that if you're going to have everything water jet, you leave yourself extra room on the lock face. It's pretty easy to design your lock to meet that lock bar and forget to add 50, 80 thousandths extra so that you can cut the angle in that lock. So that's a consideration when you're drawing up your files in CAD. Another thing that I like to do is, and hopefully you can kind of see that here, I cut a little half circle water jet style. I draw that in just above the lock face. It just gives me the ability to grind that lock in there and it looks a little cleaner, and then I just clean it up with a Dremel when I'm done, or a 4-dorm or whatever. So I'm gonna run over. Normally what I do is I take a Sharpie, draw a line, just black out a spot right there, set it on top of the frame here, and lock it in the open position. I do that with the bearing in there, and then what I do is, it's hard to do this with one hand, but I hold the blade open and I pivot it against the stop pin in the pivot so that it's locked in the most open position, and then I take my X-Acto knife here and run it through this slot and just mark a straight line across that black stuff. That way I have a rough estimate of where that lock needs to be. And then we'll run over to the grinder. Okay, so I've already got the plating set at 9 degrees here. I just use a cheap angle finder. And you got to make sure that you give it a little shake so it settles. I'm about 9 degrees. You probably can't see that, but so I set that up, and basically I run everything hard. So I'll turn on my coolant and I'll turn the belt speed to medium speed or so, and then I'll just grind that real slowly, and I walk the belt over to the edge of my plating and I grind just to the edge of that, and I always leave more at the end, the bottom of the tang, than I do the top. That way you've got that angle setting there, so you're kind of at an angle like this instead of just straight. You're cutting at a slight angle. That way only the bottom portion of the tang of the blade touches the lock face. So I'll grind this out real quick and I'll show you. Okay, so I got the lock ground out, so you can see a ground pass, so I'll just wipe off the Sharpie there. I really wish I had a better camera so I could show you this, guys. Anybody wants to donate to the cause, you can send me one of those little GoPro cameras if you want. I won't charge you. So there's a lock. I just use a 120 grit belt. You don't want a polished surface here. It'll cause the lock to stick. You want kind of a gritty surface, so a 120 seems to work pretty well for me. I've actually used a 30 or a 60 grit before, and it works pretty well also. It really, as long as it's not anything above about 120 or so, it works pretty well. For me at least. Some guys get away with a 220, I don't know. So I'll pop this on there. Now when you look at it, and you probably won't be able to look at it seeing as how my camera sucks. Get my tweezers here so you can see. Maybe if I back up a little. The lock tang is just touching, let me see. Yeah, you're probably not going to be able to see it. It just touches from the very tip to about right here. So about 50 thousandths or so. Maybe 70, 80 thousandths. I don't really measure it, I just do it by eye. This is also, this section here of the lock, you can see that. There you go. That's why I cut out a round portion here. It takes care of the lock face. None of the lock from here to about the detent ball touches anything, so you don't have to worry about that. You just want the forward section touching. That's a very important design consideration. Your lock face should never touch the entire tang. I've had a few knives come back to me to be fixed after somebody had worked on them and they had taken a Dremel and ground all that off, and then the guy was wondering why his lock was slipping now. That would be why. You're not supposed to have full lock tang engagement. It doesn't work. it effectively moves the point of contact all the way up to the top here, and you want the point of contact as low as possible and as close to the pivot as possible. So now that I got that done, it's pretty much good to go. I shoot for not terribly early lockup, but that's probably about 60 thousandths or so, 50, 60 thousandths. And then, so I'm gonna work on this real quick. I'm gonna grind out the spot for your finger to fit inside the frame. I already chamfered the edges on the blade, so blade's pretty much good to go in the acid. I'll just put some acid resist on here, and then get this all squared away to where I can finish the frame, and I'm gonna try to do all the rest of them today and then try to get a couple out today also. So there you go, guys. Hopefully that'll help you if you're new into knife making or you're just kind of curious how that worked. Thanks, guys.